Because person to do this honest. Oh, he's live streaming.
Speaking of energy, we're live on a Tuesday night for Triple T number 88. Holy smokehouse, as Papa would say. Yeehaw! September 5th, 2023. My name is TJ Zeville. I like to call myself a professional problem solver. And I always have to follow that with, no, I don't know everything, but I have a unique ability to ask a lot of questions and help people find the answers they're searching for. I also help people with a lot of challenges, PTSD, anxiety, phobias, limiting beliefs. I do corporate coaching. I work with professional athletes for performance enhancement. And that's just the beginning of the Rolodex, but we're going to let it roll from there. I also have a website, thetswd.com. That's right, thetallskinnywhiteboy.com, the TSWB. I do offer a free 30-minute consultation. That is your opportunity to spend 30 minutes on Planet TJ to see if we can be a fit or not. If we are, I will let you know. If we are not, I will also let you know. I'm not here to take your money and waste your time. I will diligently try to either get you the solution or get you to somebody to get the solution you're looking for. And for those of you in YouTube land, hi, Mom. Mom likes to tune in. And if you haven't done so already, or if you're watching the recording, please hit the subscribe button, smash the likes, and it brings the bells and all the fun stuff that people like to have you do on YouTube. And please, please, please leave comments. In fact, leave comments about your comments. I love seeing comments and reading them. And there've been some good ones. Let's see, that went, yes, we got everything covered. Anybody got any ahas, epiphanies to share from the week since we were together last?
I'll go first. I'll go. Two things. So one thing is I kind of started thinking about this week that I spend so much time as we, focus in this clearing world, focusing on my past and clearing stuff out. And it just occurred to me that I need to maybe spend more time looking at my future and not just clearing stuff, but also putting beautiful things in on that timeline. So that was one. And then the other one is I had an interesting conversation with somebody. It's funny how when you're looking at yourself, you don't always come up with the best advice that suddenly you give to somebody else when they're in the same circumstances. Somebody was telling me about how she likes to let people kind of, shall we say, not be the nicest to her because she feels like she's distracting them and pulling them away from hurting other people. And I just kind of had this download of when you let somebody hurt you, you're not actually protecting other people because first of all, you're giving them practice on how to hurt people. Second of all, you're giving them some of your energy. So you're just giving them extra, you're letting them suck your energy so they can hurt more people with it. And then third of all, when you let somebody hurt you, you're hurting all the people who care about you, who are looking at you, seeing how much you're hurting. Anyway, those were my downloads for the week.
Like a triple whammy.
Those are so good.
Awesome. Okay,
Elijah,
now,
how about you? I don't know if Elijah's popping in.
I taught my class, the first one in the series that I'm going to do. It went pretty well. Had some new faces, had some returning faces, had some faces that I hadn't seen for like a year or so, and they happened to have time and show up, and yeah, I think we did well. We covered some pretty good stuff. And I feel like it's going to be a good series.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Very awesome. It was fantastic.
Cool.
It was a great one. I got the ability to attend for an hour and a half, and then I actually went back and was able to attend for a little bit longer. And Elijah did an awesome job. My insight for this week was everything is a trance. Every thought is a trance. Every time you're interacting with somebody, it is a trance. So if you have a less than positive thought, simply a less than positive trance. And it has been one that I heard, but I really didn't hear it and internalize it until today. That was my question.
And if you think you're not in a trance, then you're probably deeper than you thought.
Mm-hmm. So it's like I brought my head up to water, up for air.
You still get air in trance.
Because as agents of change, our job is to take you out of the trance you're in and put you into one that is beneficial for you. Awesome. Well, those were good stuff. Looks like you guys have had a productive week. Mine has been quite productive as well, considering we're still at 100 and help me Jesus degrees out right now. It's still, last I checked a little bit ago, feels like 106. And that's with a heavy breeze. Kind of like a convection oven. I was thinking about making supper. I was going to set a turkey out on the deck, and I figured it'd be done by the time we get done with Triple T. But moving on. The topics I came up with this week: fact checkers, lessons or losing, and what scorpions do. So let's dive right in. It's interesting how, especially in this day and age, everybody knows the idea of fact checkers. And hey, Nance. And so we've got this concept, but it wasn't until this week when I was helping somebody that the concept of what version of you is doing the majority of your fact checking. And when's the last time you checked in with them lately? Because it turned out a younger version was doing the vast majority of the fact checking, and if they didn't like it, and if it didn't fit into what their world was back then, And as a result, a lot of the new thoughts, concepts, trainings, ideas that were coming in were tossed out or held back. And I've applied this concept as well a number of times without seeing the correlation into the wait to date protocol. A lot of people that are complaining that they're always dating the same jerk in a different meat suit. And when we dig down to it, their dating values and criteria were set up in their mid to late teens and were trying to think of the, were kind of parts handed to them by their parents or lack of parents and all the above. And now they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, wondering why they keep ending up with the same jerk. And we go in, and the version of them that's in control is not in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. They're in their 5s, 10s, 12s, 15s, 17s. Same program, same bat time, same bat channel, same bat problems, same bat complaints, same bat life. And for you bat lovers out there, this has nothing to do with bats, so just stop typing. But I'm curious, anybody experience anything similar like this when you started going through why is this happening and realizing that you had a much younger version doing all the fact checking, making sure that it had to comply with their limited knowledge at the time or ideology or values and criteria? Lenora.
For me, it helped when I was able to quite literally separate it from myself. So when I would notice it, and one question in particular, especially because for those, I'll share, I have worked with TJ one-on-one, and one question in particular he would ask me is, how old is this part? And I would go with the first number that was coming up. So for me, it's much easier to identify which actress is on stage and which the age that they're acting as. And in doing that, I can separate it and then navigate through that. So I can see when my fact checker is not the best one involved. And especially I was working through something and I was stalling on taking action. And every time I would want to take action, this other part would come up where it was whiny and I didn't want to do it and I didn't want to partake in it. And then it was whatever it may have been. But when I was able to notice that it was a part and I gave it a voice and then I was able to call it out, so much easier to navigate through. And then the next question was, well, who would be a better person other than that younger version of you to take over that role? And I was able to put somebody else in that place. And then it became much, much, much more effective, to say the very least. So it was huge when I was able to separate it and I was able to give it a number and a voice.
Yay!
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else got anything they want to share on that?
I'll add something. So as you were saying this, I was realizing I actually had a more mature fact checker for a little while. And then what happened is she got basically one thing wrong. I ran into a wall. And I didn't even realize I'd done this, obviously, but on an unconscious level, I immediately went back and pulled out my 5th grader to take her place because it was like, oh, you screwed up once. And it's like, how many times has my 5th grader screwed up? In comparison, how many fewer skills does she have? But it's amazing how much the subconscious mind just prioritizes keeping itself safe above all else if you don't actually talk to it and interact with it.
Exactly. Great insights. And Elijah brought up a quote from Dr. David Snyder. When you name something, you create it. When you describe it, you bring it to life. And that's why I keep trying to drill down and find ways for my clients to figure out how to identify and personalize the challenges. It's really hard when you're not sure why or how things are happening. But when you can visualize it, give it a person, give it it's a personality, but when you identify it as such as an entity, now you can give it all the characteristics that are associated with it and deal with it in a.
This is so interesting, TJ, and hearing it, the parts. But what happens when it's kind of even earlier than that, when it's really primal, as far as attraction is concerned? I don't seem to be able to find an age. It's just sort of DNA related. What's your comments on that? How can you clarify and upgrade that for me?
What if you took all of the characteristics about that and made a movie role for it and assigned an actor or an actress to it? Now you have something your mind can construct as tangible to deal with. If it's a scared little, or if it's a bold, pretentious, or if it's a whatever you could identify it as such, find ways to describe it and bring it to life. Then you can confront it.
Okay, interesting.
That's where I know that I love having you on here, Fran. And for those of you that don't know, Fran is actually in Australia. So our time zones are a little different, can be a little challenging. But on a couple of the triple T's, I talked about one of them in particular. I talked about the spotlight effect on the orchestra with your personalities, because we all have multiple personalities. You are not the same person 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon in a board meeting as you are Friday night at 10:30 or 11 o'clock during happy hour versus Sunday morning at church. We all have different personalities. And when I started realizing that some of the older personalities like to take the stage, when I first was constructing this, I described it as who's on stage, without realizing they're all on stage. It becomes an orchestra. The difference is who decides that they want to play the solo, whether it's their turn or not. And they get up and they start screaming their lines or taking over. Is the spotlight actually on them, or are they trying to steal the show? Like when you feel jealousy or something like that, and you're like, why am I doing this? And you look inside, you look at the stage, and your 11-year-old is going, well, I don't like it, and this, because this happened when we were 11 years and 6 months old. Don't you remember that? Huh? And you're like, where? Oh, it's you. Yeah, that did happen once. and we survived. We got the lesson. Now go sit down. Play the music in front of you or be quiet. You'll be fine. Here's a popsicle. Go sit down. But you can do that for a lot of these things that, even if they don't match up with a particular age or event, if you can describe it, and because you're the editor, producer, lead role, all the above in your movie or in your stage performance, get an actor or an actress to play the part so that you can go, yeah, we're writing, that part's not in the script anymore. From here on out, this is how it's going to be. Lenore, you got your hand up?
You think I know how to do this by now. Fran, one thing that was really helpful to me is when I would notice those feelings that were coming up or those voices that were coming up or somebody was on stage, if giving her a popsicle wouldn't settle her down, which is entirely possible, she's quite feisty sometimes, I would talk to her and, okay, well, what might it be like if somebody else was on stage? How might else can you act doing X, Y, and Z? And giving her something else other than go off stage because she's kind of pesky. So if I can talk to her, it's easier for me to get her to dial it down and then to let another version step up. And it's just really raising your awareness. And sometimes I wonder if I'm over talking to myself, which is also entirely possible, but it seems to work for me. And then I can navigate through whatever I need to navigate through.
Any questions or ahas on that? Cool. Anybody else got any input, questions, or ahas, epiphanies on that part? Then I'm going to segue right into the second topic of lessons or losing, which kind of ties in with this. Is we've all heard, it's not a failure if you learned the lesson, if you kept the lesson, which is why when I'm working with clients, I'm so adamant about techniques that allow the conscious and the subconscious to understand that the lessons are being preserved, they're being rescued. Not only that, but I created a protocol where they have a lesson box or a lesson safe where all the lessons are cleaned up and put into the lesson box and locked away, where only the conscious and the subconscious can get in and have access to them. Nobody else gets to mess with them. And they're all living. Every lesson that you add to the safe or to the box now gets to intermingle with all the other lessons that you've learned since the dawn of time. Because the more you learn, things start to look a little differently. One of Wayne Dyer's famous quotes, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And the more lessons you add to the box, the more it changes the perspective on a lot of things in your life. And they all interweave and mingle and add to each other. And so many people, especially those with, shall we say, a less than positive outlook on life, have a strong tendency to miss the lessons in anything that happened. Including in relationships. Oh, I thought this was the one and it didn't work out. Yeah, what was the good part about it? Nothing, it was a failure. He sucks. I hope he da-da-da-da-da. So what was, and you all drill down to find out, allow them to identify the lessons that were inside of that situation, inside of that time spent. Thank you, Lenora. Put in the chat your quote about you were doing your best is very helpful in reframing. Because at the time, your lesson box didn't have some of the lessons that you gathered up and added to it over time. That's why a lot of people that are beating themselves up for something that they did or didn't do back in the day, I like to remind them, but you weren't that person then. Things have happened, things have changed. You've lived life in between those 2 points. So yes, you did the best you could at the time with the tools, the knowledge, the energy available to you. If your lesson box would have had these new lessons in it, you would have done a little differently. Because then you would have been doing the best at the time with the tools, the knowledge, the lessons you had available to you. If you could have done better, you would have. And sometimes we have to look back and evaluate, did we recognize and accept all the lessons that were in those experiences? Sometimes we think, yeah, I got it, I screwed up. That was your lesson? Well, yeah, what else would there be? Okay, grasshopper. Let's go back and analyze what happened. Take a fresh look, kind of like, in sports. Time for the replay. And take that, you've already invested the time. You've already gone through, you've already survived the event. The replay movie will have whatever energy you allow it to have. But the lessons will also still be in there, and you don't have to worry about the worst part of the event anymore. In fact, pulling out the lessons and recognizing them and counting how many lessons were inside of that oftentimes diminishes the energy you thought was stored inside of the recording. Because A, confronting it allows you to verify, yes, I did indeed survive that. I am still here. And even if I screwed up, I didn't do as bad as I could have or would have. And with the tools, knowledge, and energy that I had available at the time, I couldn't have done better. Because I don't get to use the hindsight as 2020. Hindsight means I've had time to analyze it with new eyes. Well, you didn't have that at the time. Or you would have done it that way. That's how it works. And so, even in the losing, recognize, analyze, and save the lessons. And find out who's the fact checker telling you what the lessons were and how important they were. No offense, but I don't want a fact checker telling me how I did driving a car. I don't want a 5-year-old telling me what I should have done on a large business merger. I don't want a fact checker who's 5 years old telling me what I should have said to save the relationship. Should have gave him a puppy. That makes me happy. You want a puppy, ask for a pony, right? Any input on that? Yeah, Lenora.
I really loved what you said about recognize, analyze, and save the lessons, especially when it comes to 3-chair. And I was walking myself through a 3-chair over the weekend, and more people showed up than 3. And what I found to be helppful was, especially once I had that realization of, hey, there's a younger version here, filtering everything. Okay, so who would be a better version? And I actually put my higher self in that space because that was going to be more helpful for me. So while I was doing 3-chair, I noticed that my younger version needed to get everything out, and she wasn't settling for what the higher self wanted to say or what the observer wanted to say. She needed to completely get everything out at her way, and there was going to not be any interference of that. And once she was done, then she was able to actually come. I know this sounds weird. She was able to come over to me, but then the higher self also came over. So like me as the observer at this age with what I know, and then a higher version, whether you want to call it myself or another higher version, angel, guardian, whatever you want to call it, was able to come in and then have another conversation, which was very, very expansive and much, much more profound, because there's sometimes what it feels like is a level of trust that isn't established yet with me because I'm still functioning at this age, but there is a trust that comes in from another version or a different authority, whether it's an angel or somebody else that comes up. Whenever I bring in somebody else, she's much more understanding, and she's able, once she gets it out, she's able to maneuver through things. And the other thing that I found truly helpful was, and this is what I did not do over the last couple of weeks, which led to a little bit of chaotic twirliness. I like to put my hand on my heart and on my gut after, especially when you pointed out the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain. And I will have a conversation that way if I need to. And that really helps keep her calmer throughout the day. She has yet to vacate entirely, but whatever the case may be, it helps. And if I don't do that, it's very apparent that I don't do that, or that I missed that, whatever way you want to say it. Those are my thoughts.
And I thought it was interesting. It's very apparent. Sometimes she probably views you as a parent.
Oh, look at that word twist. Who saw that coming?
Well,
Plot twist.
5-year-olds don't always want to talk to the parental units.
Damn.
They would rather talk to somebody else. And so bringing in somebody else on the side, they'll settle down and tell them what's bothering them. So, any other input, ahas, epiphanies on that while we're on a roll?
Got a couple of them. So first of all, when you were talking about hindsight is 2020, one of my big things is, and the fact checker needs to know this, is hindsight is not 2020. It may somewhat see the outcome that happened based on what happened, but in order to judge it, we have to assume an alternative scenario. And sometimes we don't even get into the alternative scenario. So if something bad happened, we say, oh, we screwed up. But for all we know, we were choosing between two bad scenarios and we picked the better of the two. And we don't even give ourselves credit for that. We just say, oh, don't like the outcome, should have made a different choice, without even going through the idea that the other choice might have been even worse. But one of the things that also is coming up, because anyway, so the fact checker is going to make that assumption, but sometimes we need to question it and say, what other things might have happened? Is it possible that, we're focusing on something that's wrong? But the other thing that came up is it's not just about the age of my fact checker, it's about the pickiness or standards of my fact checker. Because what you were saying about, I think you need to have more than one fact checker in your life. And then you just need to be able to assign different tasks. So that when you talked about driving, I don't want a 5-year-old criticizing my driving, but also as long as it's good enough to get me there safely and keep everybody else around me safe, I don't want my highest standard either. I don't want to be looking at every single tiny decision. If I walk to my front door, did I walk with grace? I mean, as long as it's good, some tasks good enough is good enough. And I need a fact checker that's just looking at it and saying, yep, that was good enough. But some things need to be held to a higher standard too. And so maybe I need to have different fact checkers with different standards looking at different activities.
And you can design a protocol or a hierarchy or an operational procedure for how that gets handled. That's the cool thing about what we're doing here. And you're absolutely right. I'm glad you brought up the hindsight 2020 is not always the best case scenario. We can fantasize, we can summarize, well, if I'd have done this, it would have, but it's kind of like, the multiple endings to the movies. Well, if they wouldn't have gone into the woods, they'd have been just fine. Except for, what was waiting for them in the barn. They didn't go in the barn, but they didn't know that there was something waiting for them in the barn, so they went in the woods. Yes, there are so many different ways to play it out. And you can exhaust yourself over and over again with the what ifs and the couldas, the shouldas, the wouldas, and instead take the lessons, put them in, mix them in with all the other lessons that you've got, pure, without the additional luggage, baggage, feces that came with the lesson. Like I had said, there are certain lessons that we learn easy, clean, and pure. But there are some lessons, and it can be the exact same lesson, if learned a different way, comes with a whole lot of baggage. Favorite for those of you that are new, hearing for the first time, Don't touch the hot burner on the stove. Dad's told you 100 times. You're reaching up for the stove. Don't hot. Don't. Now, one scenario, nobody's in the kitchen. Nobody witnessed it. You didn't get a bad burn, but you realized burner hot, no touch. And that lesson was learned just like that. Versus you reach up, you touch it, Dad sees you touch it, sees you get burned, you start crying. Now he loses his mind because he's only told you 30 times, don't touch the frickin' da-da-da-da-da. And then he yells at you and calls you names because he's having a bad day. And when his dad caught him touching the burner, he lost his mind because he was having a bad day. Now you get that lesson with a whole lot of garbage and luggage and feces and schmutz. Same lesson, two different ways it was stored. In the end, all you need is the lesson. You don't need all the extra luggage, all the schmutz, all the junk. And so that's where lessons are losing, and making sure that the fact checkers are cool with the concept of we survived the event, we gleaned all of the lessons, and it's okay to let the rest of the schmutz go because it's not serving us. It's extra weight. It's extra data on the hard drive that's causing problems. And so we can streamline, keep what we need, get rid of the extra. That make sense? Any other ahas, epiphanies on that before I change this on to we're gonna hopefully get 3 subjects in today. All right, third one, what scorpions do. Those of you that know me have probably heard this one before. And it comes from a little story about the frog is enjoying life next to the big pond and sees a scorpion coming up, and he's like, whoa, and the scorpion's like, ho, 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 no, we're cool, brother, we're cool. I'm actually just wondering if you'd let me ride on your back across the pond, because I'm late for a date and I can't make it all the way around. And the frog is like, what? Scorpion's like, dude, I can't swim. I'm just asking for a favor. And the frog's like, well, how do I know you're not going to sting me? He goes, well, that'd be kind of dumb, because if I do that, then I'm not going to make it for my date on the other side of the pond. All right. So the scorpion gets on the frog's back, and the frog's swimming him across. And about halfway across, all of a sudden the scorpion goes, ah, and stings him. And before the frog dies, he's like, why did you, now we're both going to die. And the scorpion goes, scorpion's got to do what a scorpion's got to do. Sometimes scorpions do what scorpions do, and they don't know any better. And when you look back at all of the stuff that we've just talked about, yes, Elijah added the part that it's in my nature. And so applying this to the stuff with fact checkers and things of that nature as well, what part of some of the things that we do are the scorpions, and what part of the people we've interacted with did what scorpions do? And the quicker you recognize that a scorpion does what a scorpion does, it's easier to look at some of the people around that have done certain things and go, wow, just another scorpion. Doesn't mean that you let them off the hook. Because remember, the frog and the scorpion both died. But if you use that insight and go, well, fine, you're a scorpion. And realizing that you are the king or the queen of your kingdom. Time for a little pest control. Scorpions are not allowed on the kingdom. And we also have to look at some of our younger versions that react. Are our younger versions doing what scorpions do? Because that's all they know. And they don't realize that they have access to the lesson box. They may not realize that things have changed. Yeah, we survived a few things. We don't have to be like that anymore. We don't have to think like that anymore. We don't have to react like that anymore. We don't have to be the scorpion anymore. Lenore.
For the people that, and I'm very curious as to what other people would like to share about this also. Scorpions do what scorpions do. And then there are times where you live with scorpions, like they're close to you, they're your friends, they're your family, and you really can't get rid of them. How do you manage that? What are some things that you've also done to acknowledge that this is something that I have to accept about this person? And you can't, probably really don't want to. Yes, absolutely. Boundaries. I completely agree, Elijah. To when they cross that boundary, noticing when it's on them, but also saying, like letting it hit that point that says, you're just going to freaking do it anyway. I can't do anything about it. And this is something I have to accept about you. And how else do people manage that? Are you just like, I can't fix that. That's not on me. What else goes through your head? Are you neutral about it? Do you laugh about it? What else is going on in there?
Well, my mum was one of them who had many beautiful qualities, but that sting would sometimes come out and you never knew when. And it was a bit surprising and devastating. And sometimes the best way, I don't have a total solution, but the best way that I kind of worked it out was she has a different measurement scale to me, like Fahrenheit and Celsius, like different currencies and, the scale that they have against each other, that she's working on a different scale to me. or even, the strength of hurricanes that's logarithmic, and you're working on a multiplication rather than a logarithmic scale. And so they just don't quite match anywhere along the scale. And just being aware that the measurements are so different. They do relate, but not directly. It's really, you have to actually use a formula to make them relate to each other. It's not a direct relationship. So, that sort of, I guess, expansive reframe, that it's like different species, and just accept that they're different species, and you just have to make the best of what fits and accept that it ain't going to be perfect.
That was awesome,
and
Fran.
look
Thank
for the
you.
love underneath it, because very often, like the nature of scorpions, there is not necessarily the malice there. It's just the nature of who they are. It's not malice aforethought. It's usually, sometimes.
That was awesome, Fran. Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate that, Fran. The other insight or metaphor that I use a lot for that scenario is like the MMA fighter or the boxer. If you get hit in the face unexpectedly out on the street, chances are you're going to go down. When you're in the ring, those guys get hit hard and they keep fighting, but it's because they're expecting the attack. Now, it doesn't mean that you go to this place where the scorpion is going, all right, let's go. But at least when you understand that you are in the scorpion's lair, when you're in the boxing ring, even if there's not a fight scheduled, if you see or get hit with a cheap shot, you're like, oh, all right. And you can decide, do you strike back? Do you take the blow? If it's a scorpion, just like with a lot of venoms, if it don't kill you, it only makes you stronger type thing. If you've been stung enough times, your body unfortunately may get used to it, to where some people don't even feel the sting anymore. They just see the strike and they realize they've been hit. And it's up to you as the receiver to decide, what do I do about the strike? What do I do about the injury? What do I do about the poison? How do I handle that? Is there any chance to tear off the stinger? Is there any chance to convert them into being something different? Is it worth the energy to try and do any of those? If the self-work is the highest result with the lowest amount of energy involved, and you can take that self-work and create an antidote to where you can be in the vicinity of people like that, and when they try to sting you, you're like, oh, you're a scorpion, you suck, whatever.
I notice it when I'm more, or a different actress would be on stage. When I'm more chaotic and twirly and things come out, I take it much differently than when I'm calmer. And I love that you pointed out, Fran, the Celsius and that it's a different measurement. Like there are certain people where even in chaoticness, I'm like, nah, whatever. But then other times when my SRUs are down low, that was really helpful to even say, you know what, you just got hit with a 2x4 and it's a completely different situation, and don't even bother executing on it.
And you might love a scorpion, but they will love you back in a different way. And they don't know it's different. You are the one that knows it's different. So you are the person that can decide what's okay. And getting angry with the scorpion doesn't make any difference, or just causes more chaos. So don't bother. They don't understand. You're the one that understands. You're the big person in this relationship. So you can decide to accept or decide that, yeah, just keep it out there. Thank you. And when it's somebody who's close to you, like a close relative, that's a bit more difficult, but you just have to be aware and create your own armor and be prepared to be surprised, and remind yourself that it usually wasn't meant as a premeditated, unkind event. It was just lack of awareness.
Yeah. I love the way you said that, because you know how we talk about like the eagle will fly higher? That would at times annoy me, because I'm like, why do I always have to be flying higher? But the way that you said that just now, of you love a scorpion, or you know, I'm guessing I'm not the only one here, guys, but the way that you said that was so much better than the eagle, because the eagle was getting tired. But that one made sense. Thank you for that.
And to add to Fran's great input, the more you understand and know the person, the easier it is to identify what's in them. You don't have to fully understand why they do things, but you know who they are. And just like with different people with different senses of humor, you know, you go around and if you've got a fragile sense of humor, I've got some friends that will absolutely hurt you with words unintentionally. They are having a blast. They are laughing their butts off, and you will be retching inside, because that's their values and criteria. That's how they grew up. That's their thing. If you're not into touch or things like that, you know, I've got a good buddy, a childhood friend, and his mom, in loving laughter, will smack you on the side of the shoulder, going, "Oh, that was so funny," and knock you out of alignment. You need a chiropractor after, but that's her love type of stuff. And then you've got the other ones that, you know, they were brought up, you don't cry, you don't show your feelings, you don't do and they seem very cold and all the above. And you may get hurt because you don't get reciprocation on certain things without realizing they don't have it to give. A scorpion can only do what a scorpion can do, and sometimes not even fighting back can be a sting. Not having an equal form of compliments for each other. You know, you can be, what's that?
Sorry, it throws the responsibility back on you about what you are going to do about it. Be aware and then make your decisions, because you know what the beast is. You know that it's a scorpion, and it only knows how to be a scorpion, but you know better, you know more. So you can decide and be the person that decides what you're going to accept and what you're not, and how you're going to shield yourself if you need to. Sorry, TJ.
Oh, no. And you can decide two things on that piece of information right there. Why does it have to be me? Why do I have to be the better person? Or I've evolved to the point where I get to be the better person. I've invested in myself enough to where I get to be the better person. I get to feel sorry for them because they don't even understand that they are a scorpion. I can't even explain to them what the idea of a scorpion is. They're like, what about it? Yeah, I got a stinger. Duh. Just because you don't, that's your problem. You're right. You know what? Because I've evolved and I've gotten rid of my stinger, I guess that's on me. But I also get the option and the opportunity to say, I still love you, but I don't need to be around you. Holly, you got your hand up?
Yeah. So some of this might kind of just be saying some stuff that's already been said. I love everything that's been said so far, but in a different way. But so first of all, I think it's important to recognize that first, there are people who are true scorpions, and then there are also people who are other frogs that are swimming around that may accidentally kick you in the face, or maybe it's a little tadpole just barely trying to learn how to swim that's, running into you, splashing you, sort of thing. Also, I think that there are just kind of in this scenario, I would say there are scorpions that are maybe the bigger ones that are lethal to us. And maybe they're the ones that maybe it stings a little bit, but we know we can actually handle it. And maybe there's the poison that we're immune to that would absolutely destroy somebody else, but we're totally fine with, and it doesn't even bother us. So I think the first step is recognizing, is this a scorpion that every time they sting me, it absolutely takes me out? Or is this something that I really genuinely don't care about? Or is it that middle level of it stings a little bit, but I know I'm getting something out of this? So with that backdrop, in the short term, there may be people that we don't have a choice, don't have much of a choice. They have to be in our lives. But this goes down kind of harsh. There isn't a single person that we have to have in our lives for the long term.
Okay.
So if you have a genuine scorpion that's really going to sting you in a way that's taking you out, and here's the thing too, sometimes we think, oh, but we're doing them a benefit. We need to be in their lives because we care about them. That's called enabling. That's not called helping.
Amen.
No consequence for that bad behavior. You're making it so that they could just stay to that bad behavior. Well, why should I change? After all, the people who I care about, the people who support me the most, they don't leave. They don't ever call me out on it. They don't ever put up healthy boundaries. So I don't care if it's a spouse, a child, a parent, if they are true. Now, once again, if they're just a frog that occasionally kicks you in the head, or maybe they're, that tiny scorpion that it hurts a little bit, but you know what? They also give me the love. They give me, there's other things I get out of this. If you're staying in their life, then you've got to take that step of saying, you know what? I am choosing to stay in this relationship, and then write down why. So next time they sting you, you can say, you know what? Yeah, that hurt a little bit, but the reason I'm still in their life is because of, and you've got your go-to list. And this is a choice. I have chosen to be here, so I can't complain about the choice that I made. And I know, the positives, the negatives. But if you've got a spouse, if you've got a child, if you've got a, whoever in the short term, you need to be, now there's two things. One, be planning your exit strategy. If you've got a toxic boss, be planning your exit strategy. If you are living at home and you're 12 years old, see if you've got a friend that will let you move in. See if maybe you need to talk, maybe you need to call social services, CPS, and get them to put you into foster care if it's really bad enough. So you're planning your exit strategy. If you're going to, and then in the short term, the other thing is, so there's a book I love, I've said it before, but Boundaries, When to Say Yes, How to Say No. And it does have a religious overtone, but one of the things they talk about is make sure that when they mess up, they're the ones paying the price for their problem as much as possible. So just ask yourself, is there a way that I can make it that when they sting, they miss me and they sting themselves, so to speak, using this particular analogy? So that it's like, yeah, you're going to still be engaging in that toxic behavior, but I'm not the one paying the price for your toxic behavior. You're the one that has to pay that price. I'm not going to just sit here and bail you out every single time. So I know that was a lot of kind of incoherent rambling, but
A lot
That
of
was
really
awesome.
good information. Yeah.
so
Wonderful, Holly. And remember that in modern medicine, the venom that will kill is also extremely therapeutic in smaller doses if you handle it properly. And if you dilute it, you can grow stronger. But of course, if you get it all at once, it's going to destroy you.
also for the why do I have to fly higher too, if it ever helps. Once again, first of all, you're choosing to because you're getting something out of the relationship if you're staying long term. But second of all, do you really want to be the one down lower? I mean, they are also dealing with crap down there that we, just because we're up higher, we may not see it, but trust me, they're not happy. They have it even worse than we do, because trust me, they're paying the price in all of their relationships because of those years.
Yeah, the reason why they're a Scorpion is also totally out of our awareness. So, with compassion, maybe that can help you deal with the stings that they deal out because of what's happened in their past, if you're more aware.
One metaphor analogy that I've used a number of times is getting hit by a 2x4 sucks. Did they walk up and crack you with it? Or were you walking behind them, they were carrying it over their shoulder, and they turned quick and hit you with it? Both hurt. But one's much easier to forgive. Both can be forgiven, but one is much easier to forgive. And you don't have to hang on to the pain of either one. Take the lesson. If somebody's walking up to you with a 2x4 like this, run! That's a good lesson. If you're walking behind somebody with a long 2x4 over their shoulder and it's hovering right about here, maybe back up a little bit so it can swing. But that's part of the analogy of understanding words, actions, all the above hurt.
And enabling the other side of the picture, that there's compassion, and in people who are in this group are more likely to be super sensitive as well. But we can enable bad behavior by not setting our boundaries and accepting that we love them, so we have to take this rubbish. Maybe we don't. Yeah.
And that brings us just past the top of the hour. We got all three subjects in. Yay! So
Amazing insights, everyone.
now it's open mic, open platform. Who's got some? We can keep rolling with this, or you can, if you had any questions or topics prepared, bring them out.
Well, I think the Scorpion can sort of segue into the relationship stuff you were talking about as well, that, our programming, our pre-programming, and how do you reprogram what you've, as a child, learned to accept as being acceptable? And, what point do you change that? How do you change it? Because it sort of is your default behavior. Anybody got anything on that?
I do when after other people answer. After other people answer.
Maybe I'll jump in. So this actually links to something I've been thinking about a lot the last couple days. And I could be completely off on this because I'm only just kind of starting to think about this, but there's kind of a concept of everything is just about getting through, Matthew Hussey calls it the teething period. So first of all, you have to think about it. You have to notice it. You have to, put labels to it. You have to talk to those parts of yourself, decide who's going to be on stage, that sort of thing. But one of the other things that has been coming to my mind a lot lately is that relationships are all negotiations, and that includes our relationship with ourselves as well. And so you have to go through, anytime you're going to change what it is so the thought that put me on this thought process in the first place is the idea that people get more mad at you for violating their expectations than violating their standards and values. So I mean, you can think about it as long as I know where to put you, as long as I may not agree with you, but at least I know who you are. At least we've come to a negotiation. We've come to kind of this place where we can sit. And part of that's just because of safety. If I know who you are, I know where to put you in my life. I know where not to put you in my life. I know what I'm dealing with. So it becomes very dangerous when you decide to become somebody new. And that includes with yourself. Like I said, these are relationships with other people, but this is also your relationship with yourself. And so when you decide to change, there's going to be a period where people, including yourself, are going to try to put you back where you were, put you back in your place, that kind of inertia. But if you recognize, yes, it's going to be difficult for a while, but as long as I push through, I will get to a new place where they've decided, oh, I've updated my definition of who you are. And this might be a little bit harder if they're parents or something, somebody who knew you when you were in diapers. But for most people, if you go into like David Snyder, for instance, he talked a lot about when he was, Captain Jack. People responded very strangely. That's not who you are. That's not who we're used to. But he just kept being that person. And eventually everybody just changed and said, oh, okay, this is who you are now. And, people who knew him long term maybe never fully grasped it. But if you're willing to push through, I think that's the hardest part. Is I think when we start, we feel the resistance and we think that resistance is always going to be there. And it's not. The hardest part is just getting over that hump. And if you could get over that hump, it's going to be something different. So.
Anybody else? This ties in so well with what I'm still calling, I guess, the wait to date protocol. When you're doing your research, when you're paying attention, especially for things like relationships and stuff like that, when you find something that, oh, that would be nice, oh, I wish I could, and you see people in relationships or doing stuff and you're like, wow, that would be so cool. You write all that down in your journal because that will be so cool. And in the same breath, you recognize, man, I remember this part of this relationship that really bugged me, or that was really lacking, or I wish they would have been different. And you reset your values and criteria and your standards to make sure that not only they are that person, but you recognize, who do I get to become to attract that person? And I've had a few clients, well, why do I have to change? You don't. You can attract the same schmutz you've had in the past. But wouldn't it be fun to become a better version of you that attracts better people? So again, that's why I now have clients doing 3 journals. One for their person, even if they're in a relationship. The person doesn't have to see it. And you don't use it as a focus on what they're lacking. You can write down things that got to you or that bother you, not as a reflection on them, but why did it bother you? What was missing? Who can you become? What can you do? Again, going right back to the scorpions, why do I have to be the one that changes? Why do I have to be the one that we get to be? Because we get to be our higher selves. We get to evolve into constantly being better. Lenora.
So you had just literally said a sentence, and guys, this is like massively reframing. Like, I can't even explain how much reframing is going on in my brain for the last hour and so minutes. You just said, who do I get to become to experience this? Or who do I get to become for the relationship one, which completely, entirely just like sent a grenade over to who the one that John Ashraf has often said, you have to become the person who is worthy and deserving of this. Or when we say you have to become this versus who do I get to become? Holy bananas. Huge, huge. That's all.
Don't write the same thing in a book 365 days and call it a year. Write something different. Create a life. But I saw an Instagram deal that how do you create a life worth remembering? Once a month, you do something unique or challenging. And once a year, you do an epic thing. So that when people are like, 2013, yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah, that was the year that I blah, blah, blah. And do at least one a year. I know, Lenora, you did, what was yours this year?
Switzerland. Oh yeah,
Switzerland.
completely. 2020, 2021, couldn't even tell you. But I can remember 2019, and I will absolutely remember this one because of it was such a different thing that I did.
Yeah. What was it, 2018 when I met you, Fran?
No, it was before that. It was about 2015,
It
I
was,
think. Now you've got me muddled.
for those of you that don't know, I met Fran when I fulfilled the lifelong dream of being able to call myself an international trainer. And Dr. David Snyder was the vehicle who brought me to Sydney, Australia. And I got to get up in front of the class and teach. You got to meet some amazing people there. And yes, that I've been blessed. I have a number of those types of events that I can look back on my life. I spent a year in Europe just working and traveling. My wife and I barely knew each other and did a tour of China. So all of that also helps you become, grow, and if you do it with intention, Oh, 2015 in Solana Beach.
Long time ago. You were
San
doing
Diego.
a travel thing.
Yes. Yep.
Was it Francine that you met in 2018 then? Because I know she went to the conference. She had told me the story about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Francine was there as well.
I was there too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We had some great times. So along with that, it's part of designing your life. Holly and I were chit-chatting earlier, and I think she brought it up about we love to look backwards and evaluate our life. But how much time do we spend looking forward and designing our life? That's why the 3 journals are so important. My person, my job, my tribe. Those are forward-thinking, designing your life. And it takes a lot of insights, research, and thought to continuously, and I tell my clients, these are living documents. I know we've heard that before, but these are living documents. I tell them constantly, read from the beginning. When you get an aha, write it down, get home, add it to your journal, and then read from the beginning. Because as you're reading from the beginning, something unique is going to happen. Some of the information that you've added and put in there, you'll get this little, unfortunately, computer needs I opened up some space, but I didn't defrag before we started. So that recording part stopped, but we're still live on YouTube, right, Mom? But again, with the journals, your person, your job, your tribe, once you add your ahas and epiphanies to the end, go back and read from the front, because somewhere along the line, some of that information changed and needs to be updated. So I tell them, when you're writing your information in, 1 item per line, not continuous information right behind each other, because then it makes it hard to realize where you have to update. Holly.
Just gonna kind of jump in. So combining kind of what you said and also what Lenora said, another thing coming to my mind is, rather than just the 3, I think I'm gonna add a 4th one as well, of myself. So my future self, shall we call it, who I want to be. And then the other thing that came to my mind is, as I'm doing these journals, I haven't been doing this, but I want to do it going forward. Kind of what you're saying, it might change. So what goes on the page first doesn't matter. I don't have to stick with it. I can always change it.
Yes.
But my head brain, my heart brain, and my gut brain all say what they want. Because I think sometimes I get so caught up in what my head brain wants, I forget to check in with my heart and my gut.
And you can put that right across the top of all 3 journals. In fact, if you wanted to really have fun and play with it, you could do three line items, and, well, this is what my heart brain wants. This is what my head brain wants. This is what my gut brain is telling me.
I love that for a title of your journal. I can always change it. I mean, what wouldn't you try if you can always change it?
Right? And that's also why in the Way to Date protocol, I tell my clients, This is 365 days of research and living with a brick thrown on the throttle. You are directed to do more in this year. You're directed to meet more people than you ever have this year. You are directed to research people and look in the mirror while you're researching them than you ever have. What do you like? What don't you like? What stands out? Why? What offended you? Why? What appealed to you? Why? And then if you add the concept of how to build monumental years, one great thing a month and one epic, memorable thing a year, well, you start planning that as fast as you can. And you can plan that stuff out, the epics 2, 3, 4 years in a row. So you have time to build up and get prepared for it. Before I met my wife, she hiked the Grand Canyon, rim to rim to rim. That's one of those epic lifetime. So where do you want to go? Who do you want to become? What do you want to do?
And then you have to get really good at time management and fatigue management because you're doing so much.
Yes. And it teaches you that also, doesn't it?
Kind of sorry, that made me think of two things. For one thing is part of the reason I think we need to do the research and we need to really play around is because the first time you write it down, the percentage of shoulds that come from other people versus what I actually want is going to be huge. And then if you want to include it in your journals, Dean Graziosi is the one who taught me this one. The list of what you want to take out of your life is sometimes more important than what you want to put into it.
Yeah.
It's just, hey, I want to prioritize time with my kids. Maybe I'm just not going to spend as much time doing the dishes and eating out. Maybe we're going to eat out more frequently so I can have that quality time. And I'm going to be okay with that because cutting down on dishes, cutting down on cooking was on my to-do list. So I think if you're focusing on what you really want, that your shen's going to be stronger, your spirit's going to be stronger, so that fatigue management's going to go away. And then also being willing to let go of the shoulds is going to open up a lot of time as well.
Exactly.
That's so important. I've got to write it down.
That's why I was given some space. And the other fun part about this, without losing the enjoyment of watching movies, you also get to pick a lot of stuff from movies. Why not? When we talk about like my class for identity management university, I tell them you can identify with people that are alive or dead, real or fictitious. Because if you can describe it and act it out, you already have the ingredients. And so you can add those things to it. And because you can identify and describe them, your person can have some of those attributes as well.
Holly and TJ, when sort of fitting all this into your life, you meet these roadblocks of procrastination. I don't want to do that. How do you get useful information out of that resistance?
Go ahead, Holly.
Okay, I have to go first. I need to pull it out. At one point, I actually had a I call it my procrastination guide, and when I procrastinate, I'd pull it out and actually look at the questions on there. So, I mean, one of the first questions to ask is this even something that should be a priority in my life? Is this something I believe should be a priority, or is it just something somebody else is trying to impose on me? If I'm feeling a lot of resentment or something like that, hey, I've learned maybe this is God just getting my attention that I'm prioritizing other people's priorities over my own. Another thing though is if you're experiencing procrastination, another question to ask yourself is, am I trying to take on too much all at once? And what is the smaller chunk that I can do? I mean, I know it sounds really stupid, but so I might have some big project at work to do. And I broke it down to the first thing I can do is click once on Excel. And then the second step I could do is click the second time on Excel. And I mean, I have to think of those together because they go right in a row. And literally that would be all I do. And all of a sudden I've been procrastinating for hours, and boom, the next thing I know, the project's done. Like opening Excel was the hardest part of the project. Going to the gym, they say the hardest part of the gym might be just putting even putting your clothes out the night before and say, you know what, for this week, I'm not even going to get to the gym. I'm just going to practice putting the clothes out. Or maybe it's just tying my shoes. So sometimes, doing that laser focus is all you need to do to get over that procrastination. But another thing to consider is they've done studies that we all have shall we call it an anxiety sweet spot, a stress sweet spot, an excitement sweet spot, whatever you want to call it. That is where we get into a flow state where we have our maximum productivity. And they say that if you actually start the project too early, you could actually end up in a place where you'll just spread the project out and it takes a lot longer, and you won't have any better project when you're done anyway. So sometimes procrastination is a good thing. It's not necessarily, as long as you're actually getting the job done. If you're not getting the job done by the deadline, that's procrastination. But if you're getting it done by the deadline and you're just not starting when other people think you should start, that's not procrastination. That's just you trying to once again live up to other people's standards of what you should be doing, rather than what actually works for you and what puts you in that sweet spot of working. Because maybe their sweet spot, they have to start earlier, but that doesn't mean that you have to start earlier to get the best product.
Awesome answer. Seriously. Lenora added in the comments, you can also ask the part that's procrastinating, what age is it? Who's the one which version of you is the one that has the biggest problem with starting the project? And one thing that I've noticed, especially with me, is overestimating the amount of time that it's going to take and over planning the execution. I can't tell you the number of times that I've got a couple of projects that have been out there that I've been putting off because I've thought about 37,000 different ways that it should be, could be, might be. Then it's gonna, when you think about 37,000 different ways to do it, well, that's a lot of thinking. So it must mean that that's going to take a lot of time to get done. And then finally, I'm just like, screw it, got to get done. And I dive into it, and 35 minutes later, I'm like, that's it? Like, that's all it? I mean, I was thinking 7 hours. I'm done in 35 minutes. Now what am I going to do with the rest of my time? And so I've been reminded again that sometimes I need a whiteboard to just write projects on, so that I have the ability to cross it off. A number of
And
people that I've,
sometimes,
go ahead.
sorry, going back to Lenora's, how old was that part? Sometimes I like to say to myself, can't make me, shan't, not going to. And then after I've got that out of the way, then I can get on with it.
Yes, exactly. And I've told some people that, you know, it's true enough to be true. If you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any. But if you can have a project list, a task list, and pick the 3 top priorities out of that, that doesn't diminish the 17, 20, 35 other ones. You're picking out your top 3 priorities, and they don't have to be the big, massive, giant lizard. But if it is one, pull that out and then subcategorize what needs to be done inside of that one and pick your top 3 priorities. And you can chunk down as much as you want. You can, I've told a couple of my clients, sometimes your top 3 priorities for the day: get up, make the bed, take a shower. Done, done, done. Next 3 priorities: coffee, breakfast, brush teeth. Done, done, done. Next 3 priorities. Then all of a sudden it comes to, you know, the work stuff. But there's something in the psyche that seeing things accomplished and getting to do that check off. That's why it's so important to make your bed every morning. Been proven. Many studies, many different, because it's one, if you do it right away in the morning, I know this my own being, that's why I do it every morning now. It helps resist that urge to climb back in that nice and comfy bed, because it would just be so much better than having to get on with the day. Just 5 more minutes, just 5, maybe 3, just one more hour already? Oh my gosh. And so you get up, go to the bathroom, whatever. I like to make my coffee, and while the coffee is being made, I make the bed. Done. Got my coffee? Done. Shower? Done. 3 things, priorities, first thing in the morning, already taken care of. But when it comes back to circling around to the procrastination, you can do the same thing, especially like with what Holly said. This needs to be done. Well, then chunk it down. Chunk it down. Priorities. Pull out pencil and paper. Pull out pencil. Done. Pull out piece of paper. Done. Well, you've already got 2 done. If you complete the 3 priorities, now you get to bring up the next set of 3 priorities. And sometimes it helps to set a timer. I'm trying to remember who taught me this, but you set a timer. I'm going to go full focus on it for 20 minutes. And when the timer goes off, I'm going to take a 5-minute break or a 2-minute break. Pomodoro, Lenora, you want to explain that?
It's a method that you work in 30-minute increments, 30 minutes or up to 90 minutes. And you set a timer, and that is the only thing that you do in that bracket. And you tell people that you're in the middle of it so that they don't interrupt you. Effective.
Awesome.
A couple other techniques that are coming to me. Pomodoro was a big one. So one that Fran actually said, but to get official with it, is the procrastination blaster technique or whatever, that I think is what David calls it, from the book Red Bold, where now it helps once again. So, we talk about in NLP about, what are they called? My mind just blanked. Nominalizations that are, you have to actually have, you don't know what that word is until you have the checklist of what it means. So if I say I want to clean my room, even if I get the emotion of, okay, now I want to clean my room, well, what does that mean? Whereas if you've chunked it down, if you put specific, I'm going to, make my bed, that's a little bit more, that's a little bit more specific. Yes, nominalization. So if you've got the specifics though, and then you sit down and you say, so the way the procrastination blaster works, and I do not know why it works, is you say, I have to, I have to, I have to. I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to. And then you pause for a minute. And if you've done it with enough passion, generally speaking, I want to is what will come up next. So now you could say the clean the room as long as you know what it means. So let's say I know making my bed step 1 or whatever, but I'll say I have to make my bed, I have to make my bed, I have to make my bed, I have to make my bed. Say that until the energy is kind of, I feel like I've gotten into the energy of it. And then I'll say, I don't want to clean my bed. I don't want to, or I don't want to make my bed. I don't want to make my bed. I don't want to make my bed. And then once I feel like I've gotten that out, and I do not know, like I said, I do not know why it works, but it does work. You sit there, and as long as I know how to, that energy is going to come up. With the Pomodoro technique, which is huge, and I've heard it done as short as 5 minutes, or as Lenore said, up to 90 minutes. There's a couple keys with it. So first of all, you're helping yourself get into a flow state. If you've read anything about the flow state, you could be measured up to 500% more productive when you're in a flow state. But one of the keys getting into a flow state is you can't have interruptions. And so, yeah, now once again, people need to get in contact with you. But if you turn your phone off, no text messages, except I do know I have my timer is going to go off. So I don't have to keep track of time. I've got that timer. I know I can trust that I have this time and I'm not going to go over it and miss something important. Put a sign on your door if you've got people in your house saying, Pomodoro technique or whatever it is you want to say, but even if it's at work, you could just say, talk to your boss about, I just want to have, 90 minutes every day that I just do deep dive on stuff. Like I said, you could be up to 500. That means, say you did it on Monday, theoretically, you could do the whole entire week's work in that one day. And I've actually experienced that. And now the rest of the week, you can actually focus on talking to other people and taking care of that sort of thing. But the other thing is, when we set the anchor of when do I clean? Or, whatever it is. I'm just using clean as the example. You want to train your body that you do it when you say you do it, not when you feel like doing it. And so what a lot of people will do is they'll go past the time. So they get into the flow. And then when the timer goes off, they say, well, I'm in the flow now, I'm going to keep doing it. Now, obviously in the moment, you're going to weigh it. Sometimes that's going to be the right thing to do. But you have to keep in mind that if that's the way you always do it, you're going to train your brain, your body, everything to only do it when you want to do it. Whereas if you, so Jordan Peterson was talking about, consistency is more important than it is about doing it the one time. So, 20 minutes every single day for 5 days is way more valuable than a 5-hour session on one day. Now, it depends on the thing, one off is fine, but the point is you're training your body, your mind, whatever, to do it when you say. So I say I'm going to do it from here to here. I'm going to do it from here to here. But most importantly, I'm also not going to do it from here to here, if that makes sense. And so also saying, okay, when that timer goes off, and you might say, it's 5 minutes now, and then I'm going to take an hour off, and then I'm going to revisit it and see if I want to do another 5 minutes or not. That's fine. But the point is you're telling your brain, I've carved out this space for this activity, and I'm going to do this space, and it doesn't have to keep doing it forever after that. And it's also not based on what I feel like. It's based on what I planned. So anyway, hopefully that helps.
And I'd like to train myself to like to do it. that's so that I actually want to. And I have done that with some bookwork, some accounts keeping at one stage, that I somehow turned it into, I enjoy doing puzzles, and somehow I managed to get my brain to turn it into a puzzle. So it was enjoyable. It was fitting the bits together and making it exciting. So I need to find a way to do that with more things that I put off.
And be very cognitive of your self-talk when you talk about these projects. Make sure that you are in the I get to do this. Too often we'll find ourselves going, oh, still haven't done this. I got to get this done. I have to do this. And the energy that just got put into that just made that hill even steeper. And the other thing I was going to add is the amazing phenomena is oftentimes if we give ourselves 2 weeks for a project, it'll take 2 weeks for a project. And then somebody will give us 2 days for the exact same project. You know how long it takes us? 2 days for the exact same project. And sometimes the magic of that time restriction is amazing. Even on some days when I've got clients and I'll have like a 2-hour block between clients for some reason, I'll go out to the shop and I'm like, all right, basically I've got an hour so that I can get cleaned up and whatever. And just like Holly pointed out, 1 hour of dedicated straight on, I've only got an hour, I've got to get this done, da-da-da-da-da. And I'll not get one project done, I'll get 2 projects done. I'm like, what do it? It took me 3 hours to do one of these last week when I had all day. Today, because I had 1 hour hard cutoff, I got 2 of them done. So it's another way of set the timer. And if you're into challenges, if you like challenges, you can set the timer a different way. Stopwatch. How quickly can I get this done? Yesterday I got the bed made in 7 minutes. How fast could I make the bed today? Ooh, got it done in 5.5. And that can be the new gold standard that you get to compete against daily. I'm addicted to this thing because it tracks my steps. And I've set a goal, a minimum of 10,000 steps a day. But there are days when I've hit 30. And when you're 6'4" and you got a 36-inch inseam, that can be some miles. I'm like, wow. Today, I walked how many miles? And so it's just another way of checking progress and keeping track and keeping score. So again, right back to with the possibly at 12 to 14 miles. Thanks, Elijah. So again, with the
10K for your average stride person is 4 miles. You have a slightly longer stride, so I rounded up to 14.
Which would make it less daunting to do one of those walks. My wife and I did the bridge walk in San Diego, and even though I'm not a runner or anything like that, I kept a good pace because I typically, yes, will walk that quite often. There you go, Fran. 7 minutes to make a bed. My volunteer fire brigade turns out to an emergency in an average of 8 minutes. And when you have that kind of industry standard, you can also start setting standards on yourself, even around these things that are you're procrastinating against.
It's amazing what you can do when you really got to. I think that was my point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. True enough to be true. And again, with that type of information and knowledge, if you're procrastinating on something, how long would it take me if I had to get it done before ... And if you're into reward systems, one cool thing a month, one epic thing a year. If I knock these things out, what's my reward? Elijah said, like Tony Robbins says, the art is turning shoulds into musts, because necessity gets it done. Speaking of getting it done, we've got 8 minutes to get this done. So any other questions, ahas, epiphanies that we can...
Gonna throw one more thing on the, sorry, everything keeps coming out in bits and pieces as I hear people talk. Another important thing to remember about procrastination is our ability to get stuff done is related to something that Matthew Hussey calls it our trust bank. If we define, and you could also go to NLP and just say, this is, my definition of who I am. If I am a person, if I believe that I am a person who gets stuff done, then I'm more likely to get stuff done. If I believe I am a person who procrastinates, I'm going to procrastinate. So if you remember to give, and this comes into the celebration, rewards, whatever, if you are giving yourself credit for all the time, the little things. So you say, okay, I'm going to make a goal to watch a TV show. It doesn't have to always be these, things, the shoulds, whatever. And then you get done and you say, I watched a TV show. So this is, the writing off the list or whatever. Every time you follow through on something and give yourself credit for following through on it, you're adding to that identity of I'm somebody who gets stuff done. And so you're rewriting that. So just, make sure that you're putting stuff in your trust bank, or once again, looking at the proof that you are the person who gets stuff done. And then just kind of also quick, the best ways to get things done, there's different ones. So there's the I love to do it that I get, which I think is also adds to the flow state. Or also, I think the Chinese medicine, we call it Shen. When you're in that state, you get stuff done. But also if it's the I have to, because for instance, if I have my hand in, if somebody's holding my hand in fire, I'm not going to think about if I can do it or whatever. I'm going to just pull it right out because it hurts so bad. If it's a I have to, you'll get it done. But also, if you relegate it to an automatic process, you get it done. So how many times every day after you've taken a shower, let's say, and it's time to go to work or see a client or whatever, what are the odds you're going to walk out of the house without any clothes on? Most of us, we don't even have to think about it. That's not a discussion we have to have with ourselves because it's just what I do. It's been relegated to that automated process of I always do it. So I'm sure there are other ways to get stuff done too, but any of those will work to get stuff done. It doesn't have to be all of them.
Great. Two things crossed my mind when you started with this. By hearing people talk, ideas come up, That's why you never want to say, I know that. Always be learning because things keep popping up, right? And Elijah popped in some good stuff here as well. It's also about deriving pleasure to the doing rather than the getting done. When you recognize that you are a person that gets things done, don't forget to enjoy the journey. I think the quote was, the person who enjoys the journey will go much farther than the person that enjoys the destination. There was something else a squirrel brought up, but he already ran in the woods and took it with him. So we got 4 minis left. Anybody got anything else they would like to share?
Just that this group is so pleasurable in the way that it generates ideas and new thinking and reframing of things that I thought I was stuck on, and find that, well, actually it was rather easy.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more, Fran. Fully reframing. If for next week, because I don't think we have enough time, can we talk about future timelining and how people use their timeline and put things in it and that they journal about it? I went off camera because I had some things that I noticed about timelining. And so now those are the questions that I have about timelining.
Well, this is a perfect scenario for 2 things I wanted to bring up. The squirrel came back and reminded me that part of this, especially with the self-talk and all the other things that were brought up, is the importance of having good journals, and journals that can be laid out like workbooks. In fact, I happen to know somebody that created an amazing one as an ebook this weekend. Would you like to share that information?
So on Friday, I had, like I said, I had asked TJ to help me with the problem, and that part of the young fact checker came up. And back at the beginning of the year, TJ had actually encouraged all of us to write down what we wanted to accomplish and to check in with what you wanted to accomplish. And the entire year, I had successfully not accomplished a journal or an ebook or audios that were posted to my website. And when he had asked me about, that's when I had noticed I had literally a younger version who was bringing up a very strong feeling every single time I would go to do this. And I would find phenomenal ways to procrastinate. And I think I got 6 awards for my procrastination. So we had cleared that and put my higher self in there. And then all weekend long, I just kept going, and I did an ebook and I did a journal, and they're going to go up on my website and also as a lead magnet. So I'm super, super excited. So thank you very, very much for TJ for coming in and with all the questions. But that was massive, huge, absolutely huge for me.
And all these points, sticking points, the points where I get stuck, turn into the topic for my next hypnomeditation or meditation group. Because by actually saying, I can't do this, what am I going to do about it? It then and I think, well, okay, I'm going to talk about this to other people, it creates its own solution. So it's kind of cool.
Right?
I
It's
like
super cool.
And the other topic I was going to bring up before we go to a close is I'm not sure if I'm going to be here next Tuesday. So I may have a guest because my wife wants to take me out for my birthday, which happens to be Tuesday.
Happy birthday!
But 17th.
birthday.
Yeah, so if it shows up that I have a guest covering for me, that's why I'm fine. So
Who's the
I'm
guest?
huh?
Who's the guest?
That's what I'm gonna have to work on because I'm one of those where all of a sudden it was like, I think it was today, I was like, oh, my birthday is on Tuesday. I should probably plan for that because historically, my birthday is I celebrate myself, and I think in all my years I have actually only worked on my birthday, I think 3 times, probably because it was like on a Friday or on a Thursday or something like that. And so it was on a Thursday, and I'm like, okay, I'll work on my birthday, but I get Friday off, so I get a 3-day weekend. Okay. And when my wife first started hanging out, and she's like, "It's your birthday. What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "I'm gonna sleep until I'm done sleeping, and then I'm gonna get up and I'm going to spend about an hour or two on Facebook thanking people for their birthday wishes, and then I'm gonna have a leisurely breakfast." Then probably be back on Facebook thanking people for taking time out of their day to wish me a happy birthday, and then I'll have a nice supper. And she's like, "Really, really? That's your day?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what you thinking there, Elijah?"
I can go one better. You know, I have never once, I am 43 years old. I have never once worked or been to school on my birthday. Never once.
Yeah,
And
I
if
was
you try to
told.
get me to do something on my birthday, I'm going to tell you where to go.
Yeah, that's
My
that's
day.
that's my day.
My birthday luckily was always in the February half-term holiday. So I never went to school on my birthday, and then it just kind of carried on from there. I always make sure that I have leave or no clients or whatever, even if I'm not going to do anything and I don't have plans. I will definitely be not working on
Yeah,
that.
because sometimes no plans is the gift.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yep.
good.
I'll eat when I'm hungry. And, back in the day when I was young, dumb, and bulletproof, it was, how many bars can my friends drag me to for my free drink? I've gotten past that stage, so.
Yeah, well, I'm not quite that mature yet.
Well, no, I realize I've got as much.
Anything that's free kind of tastes better. So
Yes, absolutely. So long story short, yes, I'm not positive if I'm going to be here next Tuesday or not. I will be in spirit, of course. And if we get back soon enough, I'll pop in and see how we're doing and give my 2 cents.
So we'll see if the guest host allows you to pop in. Maybe they will have the waiting room enabled.
There you go. But as I get to do every week, I get to thank you, all of you, for that precious commodity that I remind you I cannot create and I cannot give back, and that's your precious time. And for you to invest such a precious commodity here on this platform means so much to me. And I just adore every one of you for that. And for those of you out in YouTube land, love you, Mom. And looking forward to seeing you in either 7 or 14 days. And until then, go out and find every single way to become the best version of you. Be kind to others, make the world a better place, because we have the power. You guys are awesome. I love every one of you. Have a good day. Have a good night. Have a great week. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.